This is Carlene Tonight.
And we're Altered by Mom.
Hi, I'm Carlene, and this is Carlene Tonight. We have in studio with us Amelia Mora Mars. Hi, Amelia.
Hi, Carlene. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, thanks for being here. You obviously have a very extensive background, and you're a busy lady.
I am a busy lady. Yes, I am. But not too busy for you.
Yeah, of course. I love it. You know what I mean? Everyone can make time for whatever they want in life. And I think it's great that you're here with us on the show to discuss mental health, to talk about families, because I mean, that's your expert, like you deal with families, right? Your therapy is around the family unit. Is that correct?
That's right. Marriage and family therapist. I mean, the reality is it's mostly women that come to therapy more often, right? So I specialize in working with women and then teen girls as well.
What kind of things do you deal with when you talk with teen girls? Like, what are the issues that they come to you with?
So typically anxiety or depression, but what I see, the majority of the women that I work with, whether they're younger or moms, is that a lot of them were raised by an emotionally unavailable mom. And so I start to already see patterns and issues, a lack of boundaries, of awareness, of prioritizing themselves, of self-love, and those kinds of things. So it's really a privilege to start working with them young and help kind of guide and direct them at a younger age, hopefully to alleviate some of the issues or even relationship issues that might happen in the future for them.
Yeah, I think for someone myself who grew up in like not the best family unit, I think it takes a lot of work to work on your mental health, to figure out that the family unit that you were brought up into was not necessarily the best. Like, I think, you know, words of encouragement, all those things, like, or like you said, self-love, right? If you don't have parents that tell you I love you or that you're doing well or all those things, like you realize later on in life, you know, that that's important, right? And I guess you're a parent yourself, so you obviously...
Yes, I have 6 daughters and 4 sons. Mm-hmm. And so they're 30 to 15. And my oldest one struggles with bipolar 2 disorder. And then my 7th child, one of my boys, is on the autism spectrum, and he has struggled with severe depression and a suicide attempt. So it is very much in my life. As I look back, I really think that my mother also had bipolar 2. And she didn't get the help. She didn't get the help that she wanted. And so when I was presented with it as a mother, I thought, I have to fight for this girl because no one fought for my mother. She didn't get the help. And, you know, my father just thought she was crazy, which wasn't very nice, you know. And so when my daughter was presented with it, I thought, oh my goodness, I have to fight for her and get to the bottom of this. And I remember when the diagnosis came, and he thought, I think she's got bipolar 2. I remember feeling 2 things at once. One was like, oh, thank God, you know, that we figured out what this could be for her, because she had anxiety, depression, panic, OCD, like she had all these symptoms and we're trying to make sense of it. But then at the same time, you know, growing up, I hated my mother because we were so afraid of her, you know, we're so afraid of her. And walked on eggshells, you know, but at the same time, I realized that I didn't hate her. I hated the disease of what happened to her and how awful it must have been for her to have all this noise in her head and no one to help her, you know.
Yeah. I think it's different when the person wants to get help, but it's different when they don't want to get help. So I can relate to you with my mom where I didn't get along with her. And I was always like, why aren't you doing these things to help me? But like my mom would change her mind a lot, like lots of back and forth. And I think that's contributed to my issues with my mental health as well. So I just started working more on it this year and last year, because the pandemic kind of like ignited whatever was I had issues with. Like, I mean, I've functioned like for most of my life and not realizing now we're educating ourselves on mental health, you know, and I appreciate you sharing your story because it's really hard to talk about it. And I think that we have initiatives like Bell Let's Talk here in Canada, but it needs to be more than that. You know what I mean? We need to do more about it. And I think it's important to not hold it inside, like just to talk about it. Right. So
true. Cause they say that 1 in 5 struggle with mental illness, and as a mom of 10, the statistics are perfect. I have 2 out of 10. So that is 1 in 5, And so if it's not our child, it could be one of our parents or grandparents or cousins or aunts and uncles, so we are surrounded by it. And instead of having the stigma and not discussing it, it would just be really helpful to have open dialogue. So thank you, Carlene, for making this public, so that we can have these conversations around something that happens to us.
Yeah. 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 I think more people there are more podcasts on this issue. Definitely. But I think I want the conversation to be ongoing because not everyone can get the therapy that they need right now. You know what I mean? That's the underlying statement, like the help or being diagnosed, right? Because like when you're finally diagnosed, you're like, oh my God, this is why I'm like always late. Chronic lateness, daydreaming all the time, like all these things you consider like, oh, I'm a problem child, but more or less it's because I've had all these issues that were undiagnosed. And then here I am, I feel like, oh, I'm in my own land. Like I'm just talking about personally, right? Like, right. So yeah, it's just great that you're here to talk about it and we can discuss it. So I have some questions for you.
Yes.
Number 1 is, what have some of your clients asked for help with now more than before? Like because of like the pandemic, being inside more?
I noticed that the young ladies, like my college girls in particular, that have anxiety and or OCD, I feel as though their world is getting smaller because there's so much fear. They had anxiety before, but now there's even more anxiety. And so it used to be safe to go outside, but now there's more fear around going outside. So it's almost like, that agoraphobia where, it's their world is getting smaller. And that's my concern for them because they're doing school on Zoom. They're having groceries delivered. And so there's, with Zoom and having their groceries delivered and not going outside, the anxiety is kind of growing.
Yeah, I think it's important with anxiety, especially. I suffer from anxiety and I functioned fine for the last 4 years. But as soon as the restrictions started happening, I started having problems sleeping, Amelia. You know what I mean? And so I'm just like, what happened? Right. I was like perfectly sleeping. Then I was like, we're only waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning, running on 4 hours sleep. So yeah, like everything changed. And it's so important just to go outside and get some air. Like it really is for your anxiety, especially. So we were discussing that you're a mom of 10, right? And what have you learned about being a mother and being a therapist?
I learned that it's less about the tools, the parenting tools that you give to someone, and it's more about your way of being with a child. Because I have 10 different children with different personalities. But if I can show up and be present as possible and patient, that I can adjust myself for them rather than think that it's actually a tool. Mothers are the tools, fathers are the tools, their way of being. And especially when you have a child that's really struggling with anxiety or depression, or a kid on the autism spectrum who's dysregulated, it's even more important how I respond to them. Not with indifference or not with judgment or being critical. And so really trusting. I really want to help moms, trust that they have the skills inside of them. And just learning the power of showing up, the power of being present and loving as possible is so important, especially when your child or someone with mental health is losing it at the particular moment.
Yeah, that patience of being there, right? Hi, I'm Carlene, and this is Carlene Tonight. This is Hey Ashley by Altered, my mom.
I couldn't see. The color of your eyes prevented me
This is Carlene Tonight, and we have for you our favorite artist, Altered by Mom, Dewey.
I guess all of the things I could never say are things that I can sing. I guess all of the things I could never do were important to you.
Baby, do we keep on being friends? Baby, do we keep on being friends? Baby, do we keep on being friends?
I'm sorry for the feels that I made you feel. If heartbreak is so real, I guess all of the things I could never say will all get said someday.
Baby, do we keep on being friends? Baby, do we keep on being friends? Baby, do we keep on being friends? Baby, do we keep on
If we could try before it dies, give this candle a new light. If we could try before it dies, give this candle a new light. If we could try,
Baby, do we keep on
if we could try,
Baby, do we keep on
if we could try before it dies, give this candle a new light. If we could try, do we keep on being afraid?
Baby, do we keep on being afraid?
I'm Carlene, and this is Carlene Tonight. I have with me Amelia Mars. She's are you a psychotherapist, a therapist?
It's kind of synonymous. A therapist, a psychotherapist, whatever you want. They all work.
I know they all work. I mean, when you think about it, right, there's a difference between the psychotherapist and the therapist, but underlying, there's still therapy involved, right? Which is
But the reason I stopped saying therapist is because people will say, are you a massage therapist? Are you a physical therapist? So when I say psychotherapist, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it.
Oh, right. That's the clarity right there, right? And then there's a difference because a psychotherapist can't write a prescription, whereas a psychiatrist can, you know what I mean? So all those things. And so you deal with a lot of things like anxiety, mental, like you said, different things, bipolar, the autism spectrum. So what key components do people need to focus on when dealing with mental health?
First of all, is just really listening to their story, because as we know, like, for example, anxiety, right? Is it general anxiety? Was it part of their temperament growing up? Did they become more anxious because of life circumstances? You know, with depression, is it situational because something just happened and it, a grief or loss, or is it like they cycle? So a kid on the spectrum, there's just so many variances. So I think all of us really want to be heard and understood, because when you are, struggling with, like, for my daughter, for example, she had the anxiety, the depression, so many pieces that contributed to her mental health, just all these different pieces. It's having someone sit there and help you sort it out and unpack it so that you understand that you're being understood. Because I think that's one of people's biggest fears, is that I'm not understood. People don't get me. People don't understand what I'm going through. And so as a therapist, it's welcoming that person and tell me as best as you can what you're going through, and making them feel comfortable and safe to unpack that, especially if you've been judged or bullied. You're scared to tell and reveal parts of yourself.
So I have another question. You're based in California, but do you see clients from other parts of the world? Are most of your clients in Southern California, like you mentioned?
I can only do therapy in California. So, but when I coach people, because I'm not dealing with someone in crisis, you know, that's the big difference. If I'm dealing with someone in crisis, I would only want to see that person in my office. But if I'm dealing with other things of getting a person beyond the crisis where they want to move forward in an area, then I could coach them anywhere in the world. So.
Oh, so the coaching opens up the opportunities for other people. So as right now, if anyone's listening and they want to talk to you because, you know, they feel like you would be the kind of person that they would want to speak to if they're having issues with depression, anxiety, or they just want someone to talk to, even though they're not in California. I'm here in Canada. So I'm just saying, because you're on my show, if someone is listening and they're like, I want to talk to Amelia, at least you can coach them through whatever they're going through or whatever they need help with.
So I would say if they're struggling with severe anxiety or depression or things like that need a diagnosis, they should go to someone locally. They should have a local psychiatrist, a therapist. But if they want to be coached, if they're past the crisis mode and they just want help dealing with their relationship with their mom and where they're stuck, what happened, how that keeps showing up with their relationships, that's where coaching happens for them.
Oh, that's great to know, even for me who's listening to you. And I'm like, oh, it's good to know, right? Because I feel like we have to get over those humps, right? So going back to the core things that you were talking about, when dealing with anxiety, depression, anyone who's listening who has any of these issues, if they can't afford to see a therapist, like here, let me just break it down for you. Here in Canada, the wait times to see a psychiatrist is anywhere from 4 to 6 months. It took me 4 months to see mine. The wait time is very long. We are dealing with a pandemic. And so the amount of people dealing with mental health right now has grown immensely. Like I could tell you, my therapist, she has 40 clients booked this week. It's just unbelievable, the outpouring, you know what I mean? There's so many different things happening. So if someone cannot see someone right now, what advice do you have for them? Like, what should they do in the meantime to help with those mental health concerns?
Yeah. I think that the National Alliance of Mental Illness is international, NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness. And I turned to them years ago when my daughter was diagnosed, because they do have support groups for the person with the mental illness. They also have support groups, family to family groups for family to understand the mental illness. So I think it's looking to organizations that specialize in mental illness that can provide you with resources and understanding. Like they have videos and conversations with people. I think it's like In My Voice. So
name the organization again for me.
It's the National Alliance of Mental Illness. So NAMI. And so they have support groups. They have a very comprehensive website, videos, things like that, so that you can familiarize yourself. And if you're the one struggling, so you can feel like you are not alone. Again, there's 1 in 5, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know if Canada has this, but in our states, when someone is going to graduate school for marriage and family therapy, the universities will often offer therapy at a very reduced price so that the graduate student can learn and practice. So that's win-win.
Sorry to interrupt you. I actually have to say something to that. So as a university student here in Canada, if you are going to college or university, the university does include that. So for me, when I was in university, it was part of my tuition to get the therapy. That's when I started seeing a therapist. So yes, depending on the university, there is that option there. So definitely something.
Yeah. So just surrounding yourself with people that are kind, that are loving, that are supportive, because craziness in our own head grows in isolation. If we think about, social isolation, even in prison is the worst punishment there is to just being alone. And it's awful. It's also awful. So just sharing with people, trust, especially people that are safe. We don't want to tell our story to people that are critical or judgmental or going to avoid us or can't handle what we're saying, and struggling. So, but looking to those organizations that they are there to support. And a lot of times they have so many resources that you could just start to have access to them.
Yeah. And there is a lot of free resources. It's just time, waiting, being on that wait list, especially when it's free. That's the only thing that gets in the way. But like you said, being able to talk to someone that you feel safe talking to. And sometimes people feel safer talking to a stranger than, a friend or a family. Like, you know what I mean? Like with you, I just met you, and it's just great that we're here to have this conversation. But at the end of the day, there's no judgment because you don't know my story and it's different. You know what I mean? I find we all have gifts. You have the gift to help your clients, to help your family, like your children. And that's what we're here, like to figure out what our journey is supposed to be. And for me, my thing has always been, I feel like my gift is people are willing to talk to me, like, and just share things, even when I don't know them. Sometimes I'm like, I don't want to talk to strangers today, but that's the thing, right? But I appreciate you sharing all this information. I didn't even know about the National Alliance of Mental Health, which is amazing. So obviously that's something to look into. But since we're focusing on the therapy, what can you do in place of therapy if you can't see a therapist?
That's a good. So even if there's support groups of any kind, that is really helpful. Like whether you're a support group based on grief or loss or having a family member that struggles with special needs. It's being a part of a community of any kind. I mean, books are helpful, but not everybody likes to read books. Podcasts are amazing nowadays, right? Because you can listen and you can learn, whether it's from a doctor or people that struggle with it or conversations about it. It's just, like advocating for yourself and really, really digging. And if you're not good at that, ask a friend to help you to find that support. It is the one-on-one, that human component is so important. So that's why reading books are good. Podcasts are great. But if you can just have someone in front of you, even if it's someone who struggles with you, you're in a tribe of people to get you.
Right.
That idea. So if you can find a tribe that you feel like we can have these conversations because we get each other to a certain degree and we can learn from each other, anything like that is really.
I like that. The tribe, like I think of the show, obviously Survivor, where the tribe has spoken, right? I'm just pulling on. Yeah, I'm making it funny with that there, but it's good. Like I said, someone else told me, on a previous show that it does take a village. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to help you when you're struggling. Like we all need people to help us. Like sometimes you're like, well, I don't want to ask for help, but sometimes you really do need to ask for help, right? So.
Yeah, and I think especially those of us that have been hurt by our relationships, they say that we were hurt in relationships and we heal in relationships. So it is scary sometimes, especially if you were hurt. It might be hard to trust people or rely on people or ask for help. But if you can find a safe tribe, that alone can help transform you. You can relax. I mean, because when we're tense, we tighten up. But when we're around people that give us permission just to be ourselves, we can just like, I found my tribe.
Yeah, that is such that resonates with me so much. I think I found my tribe too. It's always good to have those people around, but life gets in the way. Everyone's busy. So that's why it's good to have a therapist too, like that person, you book time with them, I think I have one more question for you. So mental health is something that people have struggled with for years. We saw how it affected Robin Williams and so many others. Like the one thing I want to say about Robin Williams is that people were like, oh my God, but he had all this money. And, he made people laugh. And I'm like, people don't understand like what's going on with someone's psyche when they're alone with their thoughts, right?
That is so true. That is so true. I have a family member right now who has been struggling for a really long time and is just trying different things. And it's very, very sad to see him suffer so much. You know, someone who was functioning well in society, someone who went to the gym all the time, someone who took really good care of his body. And now he is in fetal position and his body's atrophying from lack of exercise. And he's trying everything he can to get the help he needs. And so far, he hasn't hit anything that has helped him lift the anxiety and depression. And it's so sad to watch. And that's why we can't do it by ourselves. We just can't do it by ourselves. Yeah, we can't assume that because you're wealthy or you're funny, that you don't struggle in some way.
I watched the documentary with Jim Carrey, and it's interesting. He's an actor and he loves acting. And the one thing he loves about it is that he gets to escape reality. Like we're always trying to escape reality, right? Escaping it with music, movies. That's all about the great escape. So for him, when he gets into character, he gets so immersed in that character that he's not present. And he goes into depression. He said in this documentary, Jim and Andy, the Grady Beyond that, like it takes him a while because he's like upset now because after the movie's done, I have to go back to being myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a hard thing too. Like
that's a hard thing.
Yeah.
Right. When you think about so much money and time is spent on sex, drugs, rock and roll, alcohol, anything, the great escape, hiding, getting away from ourselves. Yeah. And so if we can approach ourselves and not fear ourselves and unpack those things about ourselves, it's better than hiding.
Yeah. And just having the conversation, right? Just being able to talk to you, Amelia.
At the beginning, it's an ongoing conversation.
It takes years. It's, they say Rome wasn't built in a day. And so it takes years. And I thank you for coming on the show and sharing your expertise. I think the information is always vital. I have one more question. What does society need to know about depression? How does it affect someone? Because we talked about depression, anxiety, but maybe you can define that, like one thing.
Well, I think when a person... like, for example, I'll just use this person that I was talking about who worked, who exercised, who had friends. And now all of a sudden those things, I don't want to do those things. I don't want to work anymore. I don't want to work out anymore. I don't want to connect with friends anymore. All those daily things that they used to do, I don't want to do them anymore. So there's this sense of apathy, a lack of energy, of draining. It's too much. Sleeping too much, eating not enough or too much, any kind of sleep disturbance, eating disturbance, sadness, thoughts of suicide. And you just have to come right out and ask them, are you planning to kill yourself? Do you have any thoughts of suicide, any thoughts of not being here anymore? And then ask if they say yes, ask the question, do you have a plan? Is there an intent? If you were to do it, how would you do it? Because you want to know how far into the thinking they are. They might just say, well, I think about it sometimes, but I really don't know. Versus, yeah, I do. I think about it 3 times a day. And I think about hanging myself with a rope, that kind of thing. That's the difference between calling, for support, law enforcement, psychiatric help, that kind of thing. But not assuming and just asking the question, just saying, I'm noticing that you used to love to go to the gym. You used to love to read books and you're not doing it anymore. What's going on with you? Let's talk about that. I care about you. And I'm just seeing that you're isolating yourself or, take those observations and bring language to them and have a dialogue about it. Don't avoid the conversation. And that's why, Carlene, this is so important. And I love what you're doing because you are having those conversations. You're bringing what happens in the dark into the light. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, no, because I've struggled with it for so many years, and I feel like more people, like I've been there for a couple of my friends, and sometimes I can't be there. Like I can't be there every day. I can't be there to talk, but I feel like we do need to talk about it, like you said. And I'm happy that so many people have reached out to be on the show. Like Amelia, it's really important. So, if anyone wants to connect with you, how can they find you? Where are you
You
on?
can find me at my Facebook page is momconnections.com. And then my website is www.momconnections.com. And again, my passion is working with those of us women who weren't raised by moms that were strong and available for us. And so later down the road, it affects us with all kinds of things.
I just wanted to say one thing before we wrap up. I'm Carlene, and this is Carlene Tonight. If you're like me, you've probably been spending a lot of time at home with family. Because of that, you're getting the groceries you need is more important, more than ever. So with Instacart, it's easy to shop from your favorite retailers online and get everything you need delivered at a time that works for you. So Instacart, you can check my link. It is on www.divaontheradio.com. Again, it's divaontheradio.com. And if you're looking to do some online shopping for your groceries, that's where to go. So I'm with Amelia, and you can find her on
www.momconnections with an S.com.
Okay.
Momconnections.com.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Amelia, for being on the show and sharing your story about your life and your career. And I hope that 2021 is a great year for you.
Thank you, Carlene, and right back at you.
All right. Thank you.
We're Altered by Mom.
And this is Carlene Tonight.